Hello there, and welcome to Not So Happy Stories with the narrator. I am obviously the narrator, and I will be reading the story of Grief on r/short scary stories, posted by u/genius of the kick. Grief. I sat in the corner of my room, trying to figure out what the hell happened. The room itself is clean, and my bed was made just like I left it. Where did everything go wrong? My mother barged in the room and sat down on the edge of my bed. She buried her face in her hands and began to weep like she's been doing for the past week. This time was different. I could hear the pain in her voice when she cried this time. Her voice would break under the weight of all the trauma that unloaded at her at once. She was uncontrollable, and I knew there would be nothing for me to say that I could comfort her. She took a moment to catch her breath, and she grabbed my soccer ball. The sobbing briefly stopped, and she even smiled for a bit before putting the ball down and hanging her head. I really hope she doesn't blame herself for what happened. She stopped crying and sat there for a while. It's hard for me to gauge how fast time is going anymore, but I'm guessing about an hour went by. Suddenly, I heard a knock at the door. They were gentle and soft, so I'm guessing they belonged to my father. He came in and cautiously approached her before sitting down next to her. She leaned her head into his shoulder, and he embraced her. Watching my father hugging my mother almost made me feel something. I was so close to feeling again, but ultimately, it's the same emptiness. He hugged her tighter, and the crying seemed to relent. But now things were getting weird. He glanced over to me in the corner of my room. He's been the only one that's even looked my direction in the past 3 days. He hugged her tighter and started to look on in horror at me while grabbing my mother even tighter. He killed me? He started to bawl and slob all over himself while staring at me. This was all the confirmation I needed, and it would hurt. I could still feel anything. He had a vice grip around my mother, and he couldn't stop crying. He couldn't accept me for who I was. He didn't want me. What did I do? I sat there and just stared while that thing held my mother tried to resemble something human. I got up and started to float towards him. He looked up at me with glossy eyes and frozen fear. And guilt and fear. Son, you have to understand. We needed the money. We need. I floated back to the corner as soon as the words escaped his desperate, scummy lips. 16 years gone for greed. We needed what? Jameson, please tell me I didn't hear you. Just speak those fucking words. My life was worth only $50,000. I still can't feel a thing.